one of my favorite episodes, or a good episode that I like, was actually the very first episode with Trudy. Like, it really kind of opened my eyes, as far as, and she spoke very plain, not too complicated, and speak in terms that I really didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Because being new to the compliance and being new to like a lot of the terms and things of that nature, even though, like I said, I've been in brokerage, but it's just not things that we had to know.
Before we get started with the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Global Training Center. As trade compliance professionals, you want to make sure that your procedures and documentation are completed as correctly as possible to avoid any delays and possible fines. We provide a range of trade compliance courses that will fit your needs. From in-person or web training to recorded on-demand courses, we can train one or even thousands on your team through your learning platform or on our portal. We can even customize a private session for your team. Go to globaltrainingcenter.com to find out more.
So it's finally here, Andy, our fan show.
For our Simply Trade fans, we are having a first for ourselves. We are excited about this show. But Lalo, why don't you introduce who we've got on the show today?
I will. Thank you, Andy. So we have Whitney Carter. And Whitney Carter, we ran into her at ICPA in Orlando. So we ran into her. She almost kind of ran into us. She saw us there and it's like, oh my goodness, I listened to the show, and we connected. And so we had a few sound bites and stuff from her from the ICPA show. So we have Whitney. And then we have Teresa Bravo. So Teresa Bravo is a customer of Global Training Center that attended some of our training. It's a foundation building training that we have, and she's aspiring to take her broker's license, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. And then we finally have Nina Jones. Nina Jones is a co-worker of one of our guests on our podcast. In fact, she's one of our earlier guests with Bonnie Kirsch. And so she works for Wayfair. And so I'll let them all introduce themselves here one by one. But so that's who we have on the show right now. So Whitney, we'll let you go first.
Thanks, Lilo. So I am a corporate compliance manager for Greenworks Tools. So I oversee our domestic dangerous goods. We manufacture battery-operated power tools. I'm sure some of you have those at home. So I oversee our dangerous goods program for domestic and international, and then I also oversee our import and export compliance.
Awesome. Thanks, Whitney. How about you, Teresa?
Well, I'm a student of yours, the crowd. So, yes, as you mentioned, that's how we started. Actually, prior to that, when I was looking to re-enter the industry, my background has always been in sales. And I had worked for a Japanese trading company where I always found the logistics end of it very fascinating, more so than being on the road and doing all that. That was all great, but that is just something that has always fascinated me. And coming back into the scene, I contacted Lalo about, I'm like, where do you get classes for that? And at the time, nothing really existed. And it was through our contacts that you put me through with Crowd and now Simply Trade. And it's just been great. It's been a great reintroduction.
Awesome. Thank you, Teresa. And did you take the broker's exam this last April? You say you did.
I did. I took it as well.
Oh, both of you did. Okay. Well, okay. So I heard the bad news is that this was one of the lowest pass rates in the recent, I think, 5 years. It was at 5.2% or something like that. So, well, good luck to you, ladies. If you need anybody to help you protest or, protest any of the questions, I know someone really, really good. So anyway, and Nina. So we have Nina from Wayfair.
Hi, thanks, Lalo. Let's see about me. I work for Wayfair currently. I've been on the global trade compliance team for about 8 months. I'll tell you about 8 months. I actually joined Wayfair to work on the brokerage piece because brokerage is more so my background, which is customs brokerage. But I got the opportunity to join the trade compliance team, which is something I've always wanted to do. But, working for a broker, it's kind of hard to get into the compliance side. So currently what I'm doing right now, we're just working on various projects, just learning and getting my feet wet with the actual industry itself. It's kind of hard to switch my brain off from the brokerage side to actually being an importer. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And I am currently studying for my brokerage license. So to hope to take it in October. But
if you miss anything in April, Nina, you're probably doing well, hanging in there for October.
I took it the last 2 times, and the last time they're like, everybody was saying, oh, the pass rate, it won't be that hard in April, but it was 11.1% in October, and then this one was 5.5%. And so, Nina, I think you got a really great shot. We got a great shot in October.
Fingers crossed,
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to go with. So yeah. So, and I met you guys at the conference and started listening to the show, and here I am.
Attention all trade geeks. The G-Tech conference is coming to Oklahoma City and you won't want to miss it. Mark your calendars for July 30th through August 1st and join us for a jam-packed event with expert-less sessions and networking opportunities. And guess what? The Simply Trade podcast will be recording live at the event. Don't miss this unique chance to be featured on a show and share your insights with fellow trade professionals. We'll see you in Oklahoma City, where trade compliance takes center stage. Go to www.ncbfaa.org and become part of the action.
Right off the bat, what about, since you're all kind of aspiring to better yourselves and all that, the shows that we've had on some of the career moves, how to talk to upper management, how to translate, complex into simplicity, and, as far as recruiting and stuff like that, have any of those shows that you've listened to, have they been of any benefit to you?
Absolutely. Andy, actually, having been in sales, and then the few times that you're in the office and you get to actually see the paperwork that follows what it took to get our product over here, every one of the episodes speaks to a different compartment and department of what we do or have done. And it only kind of, I'm like, well, I thought I was curious about that until I heard some of the episodes. You had a 2-part episode once with it was just fascinating. It was just absolutely fascinating. So it's great to hear that you're not imagining what you think was interesting and what you think you come across in articles. So it's been very interesting because it touches on just about every department. Compliance, you'll do compliance, and then you'll do anything from the actual logistics. So it's been very interesting how the platform unfolds.
I think that it helps to articulate to people who may not understand compliance. So having a better understanding on 301 or why it's important that we know who our ultimate customer is when we're exporting, or knowing who the customer's customer is. And just by the information, it helps me. I can speak to trade compliance people, but I sometimes struggle when I'm trying to articulate something to an executive where I have 2.3 minutes to articulate, 3 pages worth of research or something of that nature. And so just by the episodes help me where I can digest it and then present it to them in a different way. And one thing that I take away is not, this is a hard stop, but here are our options and here's the risk associated. So not, no, we can't do this, but here are the options available. Here's what I can offer you.
It sounds like in what you were looking at is you were prepared to go in and you were giving them options. You weren't just like, here it is, and then expecting them to come back and say, here's what I want you to do. You're giving them the answers to say multiple choice, but here you go. Is that a good summary on that?
Yes, that's correct. Right. So it allows me to present to them and answer questions that they're probably going to ask before they even have the opportunity to ask the questions.
Yeah, a lot of the episodes, it did help me to kind of understand a lot of the things, to be honest, that I really didn't have to know being on the brokerage side. On the brokerage side, we got the information from the importer. So to actually, they went into depth, a lot of things that, okay, so this is what it means. This is why it's so important. Like, a lot of the things, like as far as, like anti-dumping and things of that nature, like I knew what it was, but just not how important it is to make sure that you knew that information. One of my favorite episodes, or a good episode that I like, was actually the very first episode with Trudy. Like, it really kind of opened my eyes, as far as, and she spoke very plain, not too complicated, and speak in terms that I really didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Because being new to the compliance and being new to like a lot of the terms and things of that nature, even though, like I said, I've been in brokerage, but it's just not things that we had to know. So I do find like a lot of the episodes, they just taught me things that I just didn't know and helped me be able to, as Whitney said, just articulate some of the things a little better when I'm speaking to other people that are in the industry as well, like some of my friends and old colleagues, so they can understand some of the importance of why they are doing the things that they do.
You have Whitney does compliance, which in itself is, that's intimidating right there. Nina, learning from it from the broker end. I was in sales trying to immerse myself. So I understand that there are times when I think, in Whitney's case, oh my God, this episode's going to be over my head and very intimidating. And it turns out to be so informative and very interesting, right, Nina? Because not to simply trade. Now, hello, I get it. It's simply put in terms for us to understand, because there are, it's ever growing and changing. And there's so much emphasis on the importance of compliance that that in itself is intimidating, just the demands that are being made. And the platform is informative to a level where you can understand it, not be intimidated. And then, not to mention at the end, you have a plethora of resources that it is built into it. So yeah, absolutely.
I think the resource aspect, being in compliance, I am the only one in my, I'm a one-man team, right? And so just having information that helps the company, right? It's a free resource that in turn really makes the company money, because I have an understanding and I'm able to then take that back to my company and explain it to my coworkers too, just to give people, help them have an understanding. So it's not so intimidating for anybody, and it makes it's approachable. The episodes are approachable, and it doesn't make you feel stupid for having those questions.
Awesome.
Well, listen, that's one of the things that is, Lalo and I we really appreciate your feedback. But listen, this is where you get to tell us what's good, what's bad, and all that. But remember, I've got to keep it simple. I'm dumb as a box of rocks. So hopefully that approach is working, because I feel like there's some of us that are like in the same boat I'm in. So if we can understand it there together, then there you go. But that said, I will say Lalo and I we talk strategy about our shows. We talk about what, we're trying to figure out, will people really want to listen to this? So let me ask this question. And I know, Lalo, you've got some good questions that are coming up too, is, are we hitting the topics that seem to be good, or is it we'll lose you or something like that? Like, oh no, they're going off on a tangent or something, or is it something that is like, it really truly is informative for you?
I find them to be very informative. Now, mind you, because everything's so new to me, everything is exciting, right? So it's very new. But I'm trying to think right off the top of my head. You had a 2-part series with a gentleman who went into the history. I felt like I was in do you know which one I'm talking about, Nina? They did it
yes,
in 2 parts.
Yeah,
that was worth the price of admission. I would have paid a university price to sit
Larry
there.
Hansen.
Yes, that was with Larry. That was a great show. Yes, that was a great show. Larry, that was with Larry Hansen, and I was like, I was in the podcast and I'm listening to it, and I was like, holy smokes, I love this. I mean, I was just so into it.
It was like I felt like I just accidentally stumbled into a Harvard University class, like I was on my way to, maybe the gift shop, and I just peeked in and that was it. Game over. Right? So it's like, oh my God. And then the history lesson, because you tend to showcase those that have a tremendous amount of experience. This has come a long way. Even for me, from back in the time when it was all I had to really about was sales. And then, we had the office people to worry about how to get it from point A to point B. But it's just so intriguing and complicated, and it's becoming more and more complicated, but more and more interesting. And you just tend to have these guests that have seen it all, been there, and then just keep up with, compliance in itself is intimidating. I mean, that's like an ever-moving target.
I really like the episode about the automated AI classification. So I come from it, from my standpoint, I don't know if you ladies are also on the ICPA or part of ICPA, but you'll get the questions that come in from the website. And so I'm always looking to see how can we better our compliance program. Let me state that we are just developing a compliance program. So everything has to be built from the ground up. So just understanding when you have such a large task at hand, like what does that look like? And documents are something that's been talked about at the conference. And I mean, I'm just looking at it to see how do I get my, the US team and my origin team on the same accord with our HTS codes, or there's so many things to look at. So anything compliance related, and how do you structure your compliance program, right? Like what are the main things? Like if you don't have one, these things need to happen first. And so I was talking with somebody from ICPA, and I was like, I feel like I'm drowning. And she said, you're not alone. Most people won't tell you that. She said, most people like Amazon, these companies that you think have it all together and they would never miss a document. And she said, you'd be surprised that there's other companies as well, big or small, that don't have the structure in place. It's a work in progress constantly. So just with that, the AI classification and adapting that, right? Because everything is going GPT is everything now. And so how do we adopt that and be forward thinking? So that was I really took a lot from that episode, and just seeing how I can bring that to my company, and is it something that we need and to benefit the company?
Are we able to communicate in our shows? The one thing I always want to strive and do, and again, Lalo and I tag team on this really well. I would say that our objective here is to give you either a nugget of knowledge or that you can take away so you can be more proficient on a topic, or you can identify your next 1, 2, or 3 steps in it as far as actions. Are you getting that from our shows?
I am. If I have a question or if I need to know something more, then I will go to the podcast and into the library and see where that episode lies, right? I deal a lot with China. So the 301 tariffs, it's in just current events as well. Your Sunday episodes that you do about current events is always really great. Yeah. Weekly roundup, right?
Okay. Well, I saw a big smile on everybody's face when you mentioned the weekly roundup. I was wondering, we always wonder, is this going to be a good segment or not? And I see a smile, so I'm glad that it seems like you all are approving of that. So that's awesome.
Because it doesn't matter what your expertise level, they tend to find. She finds articles that she's just so honest about it. She goes, I have no idea what I'm saying, but I could tell this is important. The Saturday Night Live version of Simply Trade.
I got to say, Anik she's so fantastic, but she's brutally honest, and she's young, but it's like, I love the questions and stuff. We just got the recording just before this one that's showed now, and it was interesting, and it was talking about an article about some environmental laws and taxes coming and all that. And she's going, it sounds good, and all that. And I'm going, she said, all right, Andy, what do you think? Absolutely not. I'm like, that sounds good. And we were going back and forth. So it's like, I'm going to step right into it, but it's like, okay, now I'm going to give you, it's like, I may be plowing too close to the corn, but it's like, I'm going to tell you what it is. So anyway.
So Anik is a good example of and maybe this we show this a lot in the show, and we actually talk a lot about it in the show, is she's a good example of how all of us came into trade by accident. We didn't say, hey, I'm going to be an importer, I'm going to be a broker, I'm going to, you know what I mean? We just accidentally got it. When I first started, I was going to be a computer programmer. That's all I was going to do. I just happened to be writing software in global trade, you know, and so I was like, okay, you know, 35 years later, here I am, right? So she's exactly the same example. We hired her as an intern, a marketing intern, fresh out of college. She had a master's degree. We were looking for an intern in marketing. She said, well, what the heck? I'll try that. She's been like, just like a sponge, absorbing everything, you know? So everything is, she wants to learn everything. She doesn't get it, you know? And of course, and we tell her that's the appeal that we have, that you have when you come on the show, is there's people out there like you know, that, and she's not embarrassed to say, I don't know what this is, you know, and she's not embarrassed to, you know, to just jump in and say, well, explain this to me, you know, and I love that she does that. I'm glad that you all, that is coming across.
It seems like everybody can identify with Anik and all that. So here's a question though, is when we're responding to some of the questions that come up, like the weekly roundup and all that, I mean, are you looking at us like Lala and I are been around since dirt? So it's, you know, we're giving our opinion, but I mean, you know, when we start giving these answers, is it like, oh, Andy's full of beans, or he knows what he's talking about, or whatever, or you know, Lala's smarter than I am, so it's like as we get into this. But I mean, is it something like that gets you to think, or is it something like, oh no, here we go?
I think for me, I appreciate your knowledge, right? I've been in international trade for 5 years now, and in corporate compliance for just over a year. So I want to absorb as much as I can, and I understand that. I mean, I'm not going to get it anywhere else. So this is why it's a great resource. The podcast is a great resource on various subjects as well.
I actually like the difference of the, you know, when you and Lalo both give your opinion on the subject matter. And I like the fact that you're explaining it to her as well as like us, the listeners. And I just like it. And I feel like, I'm Whitney. How else am I going to get this information? I like it, you know, I like it. And it's helping me, even if like sometimes, I mean, I'm going to be honest, a lot of the stuff I'm looking at it like, I mean, it doesn't really apply to what I'm doing right now, but it could in the future. So that's the way that I take all of the episodes that I listen to, even though I'm going to be honest, I do typically listen to the ones that kind of resonates with what I'm doing right now, because I'm still learning, you know, my job, I guess you could say, and all the different commodities. And we're just, you know, we have the Section 301, we have the weaker. So I'm more so listening to those, but I do love that. I do love the weekly roundup because I don't think it is as formal as the rest of the podcast. So I like that you guys are a little more, I guess, human, I guess, or however to explain it.
And what about, okay, so we made a decision early on to try to make these short, 30 minutes, 35 minutes. I know some go 40, 45 minutes. I know like Larry's episode, we were supposed to only air 30 minutes, but I just couldn't cut any of it. I had to have the whole history. Honestly, you know, that's the way it was. The kickoff show for the 2023 with George and Adrian, we were only supposed to do 30 minutes. I was like, I can't. I have to air the whole hour, you know. But anyway, and y'all may not be aware of this or not, or maybe you are, but we do have the videos, or we're trying to put all the videos up on YouTube. Does that bother you that we don't have the full episode? Because a lot of people say they like it for commuting, you know, but you don't commute for an hour. Well, I guess some people may commute for an hour, you know, but 30 minutes, 40 minutes max. Are we still hitting the hitting it there, or you know, what are your opinions on that?
I appreciate the episodes because I can generally listen to two. So whether I'm walking my dog, so I'm going to take my dog, and then by the time I take her on her full walk, I've listened to a whole episode. So which is great, right? And then I also have a hour commute to and from work, so it's great. I like the the 30 to 45 minutes. About an hour, it breaks it up. So I'm not sure that I would be able to get back to it. So that's from my perspective.
And I think the 45 minutes works, because you're able to hit the replay button if you need to. And it's just enough to where you're not overwhelmed, probably like, this is kind of new. You're trying to learn it all at once. So and you pack a lot. It's not like you're doing 45 minutes of filler time. I mean, you're packing a lot in that time.
Well, you all met Mara before we came on the show. Our producer. I mean, she knows that poor girl. Our editor and producer Mara is. We take 1 hour, an hour and 15 minutes of show and try to compact it down to 45 minutes or 30 minutes, and she's getting all the edits from me, and so she's probably pulling her hair. But yeah, I mean, exactly. It is a lot. We don't. You're right. And I'm glad that you're saying that it's good information that you're getting in that time frame, and it's not just, fluff, like you said. So that's good. Another thing I was going to ask is on anything that's actionable. Like, have any of you or anybody that maybe that you might have done because of the show? Like, I heard it in the show, I'm going to do this. I heard in the show I'm going to reach out to so-and-so, or, et cetera. I don't know. Has any of that worked for any of you? That's
how I ended up at ICPA. You and Andy were saying, we were just at this conference. Make sure you come and see us at ICPA. We're going to have a booth. So I don't know if when I listened to it, if you had just done one and that was maybe the first one. But ICPA and then the AI classification, we're going to try that out as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. Well, you're not the first to tell us about ICPA, which is good. So
it made me jump on the platform for continuing education because, I don't know if you recall, I actually called you once before all this started. I said, well, where do you take a class on this? And you're like, well, you don't. I'm like, well, how do you get in here? Like, you don't. I'm like, for the love of Pete. So yeah, it's involved and helped me even further my interest and stay in it. So yeah, doing a great job. I don't know of any other other platform.
Awesome. Yeah.
So you got a good thing.
Awesome.
You got a good show going.
Glad to hear. Awesome. Andy, did you have anything? Oh, go ahead, Nina, please.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing, like, basically, I did. It caused me to be able to reach out to some, I like the fact that you dropped some of the links to, like, some of the people that are on the show. So I follow them on LinkedIn, and they're posting some good things as well. Like, when they're reposting articles and things of that nature. And I too have tried, with the AI, I went on one of these AI platforms to try to see if they would classify something. So it's like, it made me interested in seeing what would happen using like the AI platform. But classification is because it's our future. And it's like, they don't really talk about it much, but now I'm seeing it, I'm seeing the articles it just made me more interested in just learning as much as possible. So, yeah.
Well, I love this. I will say that with what you're talking about, since we're talking about AI so much, just remember that AI is not, and this is where some people get themselves into a quandary when they start relying too much on automation. The AI functionality should help at least improve your productivity, let's just say 50%. So in other words, let's say it classifies everything that you've got going right now 50% of the time accurately. And as you're looking at, you go through, and as time goes on, it starts learning how things are going on. So it's going to improve that. But the point being is, you don't have to have 100% of everything. It's already done it. And so it's for you to double check it. It's like, yep, this is fine. This is good. Wait a minute. This is one that needs, you flag it, put it to the side, and you keep going through your volume and all that. So processing volume of transactions, AI should help dramatically, but don't let it be the thing that, it's going to solve all that and we can get rid of everybody. No, it's now I can apply my expertise onto those things that truly are a problem, and the simple things the AI is already taken care of. So I love that.
Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at simplytradepod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed. I like to call it our fan show, but apparently I've been told by younger people not to call people fans because they say that being a fanboy or fangirl is usually bad. So I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to offend anybody, and I don't want to make anybody mad. So let's call them listeners.